Welcome to this lying down yoga sequence for the St. Clair County RESA stress reduction for those in human services. I'll be engaging in the lying down yoga sequence as I do in class with you. So the recording may sound a little different or a little breathy at times. That's because I'll be practicing with you. The intention behind this practice is mindfulness. So inviting you try and bring some awareness to your body, your thoughts, and your breath as we engage in each of the positions. And everything that I am teaching in the practice are merely suggestions. Gentle yoga is much different than anything from hot yoga or competitive yoga. There is no right or wrong way to each of the movements. It's really up to you and your body how far to stretch or whether to even engage in each position. Sometimes if we're holding our breath and we're bringing some awareness to that, that might be an indication that we're pushing or trying too hard, maybe being too competitive with the positions. If we feel any soreness, or certainly if we feel any pain, an indication that you may want to back off of the position. And there's even some research to support the effectiveness of gentle yoga even being simply a visualization technique where we bring some awareness and visualization to ourselves engaging in the position without actually doing that, simply picturing that in our mind, bringing some awareness of how we would be engaging in the position if we need to back off. So that is certainly okay. Again, you and your body are the true indicators of how we will conduct each of the positions. So with that being said, we're going to be taking some time to get into position, lying flat on our backs. We can allow our feet to fall away from us, fall away from each other, hands and arms to our sides, palms facing the ceiling. If you're comfortable doing so, you can close the eyes or you can keep them open. Certainly if balance or uncomfortability becomes an issue with the eyes closed, there's certainly nothing wrong with opening the eyes if you'd prefer to do that. So taking some time to settle in, bringing some awareness to feeling of weight of our heels on the floor, of the calves, upper legs, our lower back and upper back, being supported by the ground beneath us. Might begin to bring some attention to the breath and how we're experiencing the breath. Might notice a sensation in the nose or the mouth, possibly the rising of the chest or the abdomen on the in-breath, falling away of the chest or the abdomen on the out-breath. Taking some time to settle in and bring some awareness to our own breathing. And when we're ready on the next out-breath, we're going to remain lying on our backs and begin to slowly raise our hands upward, perpendicular to ourselves, fingers pointing at the ceiling. And on the next out-breath, lowering those arms over our head, coming to a resting position on the floor above our head so that our whole bodies are outstretched from our arms to our legs. We might bring some awareness to what's different in this position, sensations in the shoulders or in the legs. And on the next out breath, bringing our hands slowly back up, pointed at the ceiling, and then lowering them back down beside us. And sometimes this is referred to as corpse pose. We're lying on our backs, our legs are falling, our feet are falling away from each other, and our palms are up towards the ceiling. So we'll be returning to corpse pose several times throughout the practice. And on the next out breath, we'll raise our hands up towards the ceiling once again and lower them all the way to the floor above our heads. And we'll just take a few minutes on your own with each in-breath and each out-breath, raising those hands up towards the ceiling, bringing them back down to our sides in corpse pose, and raising those hands in the in-breath pointed above us, lowering them above our heads on the floor behind us. And in a moment here, we'll begin to transition and move our position a little bit, just inviting you to bring some awareness to both the intention and the movement associated with the transition. So on the next out breath, or as you're ready, we'll have you remain on your back, but tent up your knees. Have your knees pointed at the ceiling with your feet flat on the floor. And then we will take the arms and stretch those out to the side in a T-shaped position. So the feet are flat on the floor, the knees are pointed toward the ceiling, and the arms are out to the side in a T-shaped position. And as we're doing this, it might be helpful to bring your one hand or both hands and place them under the small of the back. And we might find that there's just a slight space between the small of the back and the floor. And in this position, on the in-breath, we're going to slightly tilt the hips upward towards the ceiling so we feel that space that our hands are in between the floor and the small of the back collapse. You might feel some pressure from the lower back on the hands. And then on the out breath, lowering the hips again, creating that space between the floor and the lower back. So on the in-breath, we're slightly collapsing that space, pushing down between that space of the lower back, the small of the back, and bringing our hips back down after that. So taking some time on your own to create that gentle kind of rocking position with each in and out breath. And as that feels complete, we'll bring our hands back out in the T-shaped position. Knees are still tented towards the ceiling. And at this point, we're going to transition to bringing both knees up towards the chest. And it might be supportive for you to put hands or some support on the behind the kneecaps, on the back of the thighs. And as much as comfortable for you, pulling those knees, if that's available to you, in towards the chest. Being aware of the mind and the breath and where that is for you right now. If the mind has begun to wander, with some gentleness and kindness, and coming back to the present moment, bringing some awareness to the knees being tucked up towards the chest as we're on our on our back, still on the floor here. And if you need even more of a stretch, if that's available to you, you can always gently raise the head and neck up off the floor towards the knees. And sometimes it's helpful to place a hand behind the head and the neck as support, if that's comfortable for you. And if we're still tucked with the knees up, come back to corpse pose, lying flat on our backs, feet straight out, falling away from each other, and palms pointed up towards the ceiling. And on the next in-breath, we're going to bring just the right leg this time, knee up towards the chest and tucked in. And we can bring some support behind the kneecap and behind the thigh with both hands, kind of holding that knee up towards the chest as much as is comfortable for you. Still bringing some awareness to the breath as we hold the right leg to the chest. And on the next out breath, we'll release that leg, returning to corpse pose with the feet straight out from us and the palms pointed towards the ceiling. And on the next in-breath, we'll bring the left leg up to that position. So the right leg is pointed straight out. The left leg, bring the knee as much to the chest as possible with both hands behind the kneecap and on the back of the thigh, creating as much of a stretch as is comfortable for you. I can invite you to just bring some awareness to the in-breath and out-breath and where the mind is currently for you. And on the next out breath, lowering that leg, having it straight out from us, back to corpse position, palms pointed up towards the ceiling. And in a moment here, we're going to transition again from corpse pose and lying on our back to being on all fours. I'm going to roll over to one side or the next, paying as much attention and awareness as we can to the transition, the intention to move, the subtle movements that occur throughout the body, whether we move to our left or our right, as we roll onto our side and come to a position almost as a tabletop. So we'll be on all fours. Our knees are directly below our hips. Each of our hands directly below our shoulders. We're on all fours, forming what looks like a tabletop. And from here, we'll move into what's called cat and cow position. So as we breathe in, arching the back up, almost like a scared cat Halloween decoration. And as we breathe out, lowering our abdomen towards the floor and looking up with our head and neck. And as we breathe in, lowering our head and shoulders, arching our back into that scared cat Halloween position. And as we breathe in, lowering our abdomen, raising our head and neck. Take a few minutes on your own. Engage in that cat-cow position with each in and out breath as is comfortable for you. And on the next out breath, coming to rest in tabletop position as we recently transitioned into. So this next transition will be a bit of a balance motion with our right leg. We're going to extend that behind us and put the toes still resting on the floor. And if that is comfortable for you and you'd like a further stretch, we can raise that right leg up off the floor directly behind us. And if that's comfortable and you'd like to try an additional stretch, we can take our left hand and raise that directly out in front of us. So just our left arm are straight out in front of us off the floor, our right leg pointed directly behind us, and we're balancing as much as possible on the right arm and left leg, being as mindful of our breathing and present moment as we can. And on the next out breath, we can lower that right leg if it's still extended, lower the left arm, bring those both back underneath us into our tabletop position. And just take a moment to notice what's present for us here. And then we'll repeat that position just on the opposite side this time. So we'll extend the left leg behind us, the toes still on the floor, not up off the floor balancing yet. And if that's comfortable, we can raise our left leg slightly off the floor so that it's kind of levitating directly behind us. And if there's still room for a stretch and your body is comfortable with it, we can raise our right hand out in front of us this time. So the right arm and hand are stretched outright, level with our tabletop or our back. Our left leg is stretched out behind us. And the left arm and right leg are still in that tabletop position, providing us with some balance. And if we're still in the balanced position, we can bring that left leg down to the floor, placing the toes on the floor. Bring the knees of the left leg underneath us back to tabletop. And bringing that right arm back underneath us in tabletop again. Taking a moment to notice any sensations, differences in the body, the shoulders or our legs before and after that movement. And then as you're ready and with as much intention as we can, we're going to transition onto our backs into corpse position once again, being mindful of your intention to move and the movements that come, whether you're on your left or right side, as we return to corpse position. And once we're back in corpse, hands beside us, palms pointed at the ceiling, feet falling away from each other. We're going to bring our knees pointed towards the ceiling again in a tented position, both the right and left leg, feet flat on the floor. And on the next out breath, we're going to bring our hands directly outstretched above us on the floor above our head. And as you're ready, I'd invite you to raise your hips slightly upwards towards the ceiling into a bridged position so that the only contact on the floor is the top of the shoulder blades and the arms that are outstretched above us, and the feet flat on the floor as our hips are in a bridge position just slightly off the floor. Trying to maintain awareness of the breath, sensations within the body. And on the next in-breath, you can bring those hips back down out of bridge position to the floor. Being aware of any sensations that arise in the body. And on the next in-breath, we'll lift our hips into that bridge position once again towards the ceiling. Only thing making contact is the shoulders on the floor. The hips are in a bridge position slightly above the floor, and our feet are still flat on the floor. And we can bring those hips back down on the next out breath. And we'll transition into leaving our knees in that tented position, both right and left legs still pointed at the floor. We'll bring our hands behind our head and interlace our fingers so that the hands are interlaced and supporting the head. The knees are in a tented position pointed towards the ceiling. And on the next out breath, we're going to start by simply rotating as much as possible the knees down towards the right side. So we're doing a twist at the hips here, bringing the knees to the right side as much as possible. The shoulder blades and head are still flat on the floor, looking straight up at the ceiling with the fingers interlaced behind the head. So we'll bring some awareness to our breathing as our knees are lying on the floor, twisting to the right side as our shoulder blades are still flat on the floor. And on the next in-breath, we'll bring our knees back into that tented position, pointed at the ceiling. And on the next out-breath, with the shoulder blades and head still flat on the floor, looking at the ceiling, we'll twist our knees down towards the floor on the left side this time, creating a slight twist at the hips with the knees in that tented position, but now resting on the floor to our left side while our shoulders and head are still flat on the floor. And on the next in-breath, we'll bring our knees back to center in that tented position. Knees still pointed at the ceiling. And we'll come back into corpse pose with our feet pointed straight out from us. Feet falling away from each other. Our hands and arms resting beside us with the palms facing the ceiling. And this time on the next out breath, we're going to start with our right leg. And we're going to lift the right leg straight up as much as possible, pointing our heel at the ceiling. Not all of us will be able to bring our heel completely straight up and down, pointed at the ceiling, but raising the right leg straight and off the floor as much as comfortable for your body. Bringing some awareness to the breath or different sensations within the body. And on the exhale, we'll lower that right leg back down towards the floor. And we'll try that one more time. On the next in-breath, we'll raise that right leg, heel or flat bottom of the foot pointed towards the ceiling as much as is possible for our bodies. And then lowering that right leg back down towards the floor. Taking just a moment to become aware of the breath and where our mind might be at this moment. And on the next in-breath, we'll repeat that motion, but with the left leg this time. So the right leg will stay on the ground, the left leg with our foot flat or heel pointed towards the ceiling. We're going to raise that left leg as much as possible. And on the in-breath, we're going to lower that leg back down into corpse position. And we'll do that one more time where we raise the left leg again overhead, over our hips. Flat foot or heel pointed towards the ceiling while the rest of the torso is still in corpse position. And then we'll lower that left leg back down to the floor. And then we'll repeat that position with just a slight variation. This time we're going to raise the right leg, heel and bottom of the foot towards the ceiling. This time we're going to place our both hands on the back of the thigh to provide some support. And if possible, bring our neck up as much as is comfortable for our bodies. Sometimes a variation of this is helpful with one hand on the back of the thigh and one hand on the back of the head or neck for support. And on the in-breath, we'll lower that position. And then we'll do the same thing just on the opposite side. Bringing our left leg straight up, heel and bottom of the foot towards the ceiling. Both hands on the back of the thigh. Bringing awareness to the breath and the mind. And again, just like on the right side, it may be helpful to leave one hand behind the thigh for support as the leg is extended up towards the ceiling, and one hand on the back of the head or the neck for support. And on the next in-breath, we'll lower the head and neck. We'll lower that leg back down into corpse position. And then we'll be coming up to another transition. So again, inviting you to bring awareness to the intention to move and the different movements along the way that allow us to transition. We're going to transition onto our left side. We lying directly on our left side with our left hand above, supporting our head. So our legs are outstretched. Our left hand is propping our head up, and our right hand is on our right thigh. So we're on our left side here, and we're going to do a leg lift. On the next in-breath, we're going to leave our left hand supporting our head propped up. It might be helpful for balance to have the right arm, the palm of the right arm on the floor in front of our chest or abdomen. And then we're going to, while we're on our side, raise our right leg up as much as is comfortable for your body. Trying as best as we can to bring some awareness to the breathing. And we will lower that right leg back down into our side position. And we'll do that one more time on the next in-breath. Raise the right leg up as much as possible. And then lower lower that right leg back down into our side position. And then we'll transition into the same position just on the other side of our bodies. So we'll be laying on the right side. Our right arm will be propping our head up. Our left hand, the left palm, will be in front of our chest or abdomen. And this time we'll raise that left leg up as much as is comfortable for our body. And that side leg lift with the left leg. Bringing some awareness to the breathing or sensations in our own bodies. And then lowering that left leg. And we'll repeat that one more time on the next in-breath. We'll raise the left leg up as much as is comfortable. Bring some attention to our breathing. Remember that if we're holding our breath, sometimes an indication that we're pushing or straining too hard. It might be necessary to back off if that's the case. And if the left leg is still in that lift, we can then lower that back down into our side position. And then we'll transition into lying directly on our bellies and chest, arms down to the side, and our head turned to either side, right or left. We're on our chest and bellies, laying down on the ground. We'll just bring some awareness to the weight of the ground, our breathing, sensations in the body. For this next position, we might position the weight of our head on our chin, if that is comfortable for you. It's also possible to cross the arms underneath our chin if we want to rest our chin on our arms. I'm going to guide this position from my arms being down by my side while I'm laying on my belly and my chest. And then on the next in-breath, we're going to start with the right leg, and we're going to raise that leg as much as we comfortably can with our bodies. So we're laying on our chest and belly, chin either on the floor or resting on our arms folded in front of us. And on the next in-breath, bring the right leg back down to the floor. So we'll do that one more time where we raise the right leg up, bringing awareness to our breath and our bodies, and then lowering that right leg back down to the floor. We're completely flat on the floor on our bellies and chest. And then we'll simply repeat that with our left leg. So we're still on our bellies and chest, and we raise our left leg as much as we can. And on the next in-breath, lowering that left leg back down to the floor. We'll do that one more time where we raise the left leg up off of the floor, bringing awareness to our minds and our breathing. And then lowering that left leg to the floor. So our next position, we'll continue lying on our chest and our bellies with our hands by our side if that's comfortable, if that's available to us. And this time we're simply going to lift our head and our shoulders, maybe the very top of our chest up off the floor, creating kind of a back bend. Some of us might have some soreness or even pain in the back, so we adjust as is comfortable for your body. And then lowering our chin back down to the floor. And on the next in-breath, we'll repeat that position. We'll raise the head and the top of the chest and shoulder blades just slightly off the floor. Bringing some attention to the breath. And then lowering that chin back down to the floor. And at this point, we'll transition back into corpse pose. Lying flat on our backs. Feet falling away from each other. Palms facing the ceiling. And we're just going to take a moment to become aware of the breath and our breathing. The weight of our bodies against the floor, the mat. And invite you to have some gratitude and thankfulness for yourself, for engaging in this self-care activity. As this certainly leads us to be more centered and focused and calm in the human services for those that we work with and work for.